Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our NISAT Bulletin. And we shall start with our headlines. Buses resume taking remaining civilians and rebels from Aleppo. Two girl bombers explode outside Nigeria's Maiduguri city. And moving on to our details, starting with the Syrian crisis. A fragile ceasefire was back on in Syria on Monday as buses resumed evacuating those still remaining in eastern Aleppo following days of delays. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said that 10 buses left with civilians from the two Shiite villages long besieged by rebels, Foua and Kafria, and were on their way to government-controlled areas on Monday. From another aspect, the Security Council was expected to vote within hours on a resolution seeking to deploy UN monitors to Aleppo immediately in order to prevent what France has warned could be mass atrocities by Syrian forces. In Jordan, gunmen who killed 10 people, including a Canadian tourist, in a series of shootings apparently had planned additional attacks, according to what Jordan's Interior Minister said. Jordanian Interior Minister told reporters on Monday that the explosives belts found in the attackers' hideout suggest the attackers might have prepared to carry out additional assaults. Security forces and the armed men were locked in standoff at a popular tourism site, a Crusader Castle. The confrontation left 7 members of Jordanian security forces, 2 local civilians, and a Canadian tourist. In addition to 4 gunmen, all were killed, while 34 people were wounded, including the tourist's son. On to Beirut, the United States has delivered a new Cessna aircraft to the Lebanese army to help the tiny Arab country fight militancy and conduct border security missions. U.S. Ambassador to Lebanon said during the handover ceremony at Beirut's International Airport on Monday that Washington is proud to hand over the aircraft, the third in the Lebanese Army's Air Force. In addition, a U.S. Embassy statement said the Cessna is equipped with Hellfire missiles and day and night targeting systems. It also said the aircraft is part of a total package that includes maintenance, support, and training with a combined value of about $30 million. In Libya, a suicide bomber has killed 8 Libyan army troops near the eastern city of Benghazi. Security and health officials said the Sunday bombing in the besieged Gandufa area was a counterattack on the advancing troops that also wounded another 8 soldiers, while the IS claimed responsibility for the bombing. Moreover, army spokesman said the fighting in Gandufa is in its last stage and terrorist group leaders are besieged inside. It's worth mentioning that Gandufa is one of the last 2 extremist-held areas in Libya's east. And going to Africa, 2 girl suicide bombers blew themselves up at a checkpoint outside Nigeria's northeastern city of Maiduguri, wounding 3 civilians. Police spokesman said the teenagers detonated their explosives when they were stopped for a search on Sunday night about 12 kilometers east of the city center, near Mona bus station. The spokesman blamed Boko Haram, the Islamic extremist group that has used the scores of women and girls in suicide bombings. Meanwhile, rebels in eastern Congo have attacked a South African unit that is part of the United Nations peacekeeping mission, killing 1 soldier and injuring 2 others. The South African military said 4 rebels were killed and 2 were captured in the fighting on Monday morning near Butembo in Congo's Beni region, adding that its soldiers repelled the rebel attack. From another aspect, the UN peacekeeping mission in eastern Congo includes a force intervention brigade with a mandate to take offensive military action against rebel groups. On the other side of the world, President Barack Obama says one of his missions after leaving office will be to develop a new generation of leaders on issues such as climate change, criminal justice reform, and expanding health insurance coverage. In a wide-ranging interview with NPR, President Obama said he wants to ensure that young people working on those issues have whatever resources, credibility, spotlight, and I can bring to help them rise up. He also said that the issues he cares most about will be well served when that new generation moves into positions of authority. On to Kiev's crisis, 5 soldiers killed in the latest outburst of fighting with pro-Russia rebels in eastern Ukraine. Ukraine and the rebels traded accusations over the hostilities that erupted late Sunday. The Ukrainian military also said 6 others were wounded and claimed that 20 rebels were killed. On the other hand, according to Russian news agencies, the rebels said 2 people were killed and 2 others were missing on their side and claimed that 10 Ukrainian soldiers died in the battle. It's worth mentioning that the spike in fighting in the Luhansk region is one of the worst in recent weeks. Meanwhile, in Moscow, a Russian military plane crash landed on Monday while approaching an Arctic airport, injuring most of the 39 people on board. The Defense Ministry said the plane, an Il-18 turboprop, crash-landed near the town of Tiksi in the Sakha-Yakutia region on the Laptev Sea. The plane, carrying 32 passengers and a crew of 7, was flying from Kansk in eastern Siberia. The ministry also said rescue helicopters evacuated people from the crash site and 32 were hospitalized in Tiksi, including 16 who were in a grave condition. Moreover, the plane's data recorders were recovered from the site, but the cause of the crash wasn't immediately known. On another side, Indonesian police detained several hundred people on Monday at protests around the country demanding independence for remote West Papua. Arrests were made in cities in Sulawesi, Java, and Papua, but demonstrations went ahead in at least 15 places, according to witnesses. From another perspective, police in the capital Jakarta had warned organizers against protesting, but relented and allowed a group of about 50 people to march down a main thoroughfare. This comes as Monday was the 55th anniversary of the official declaration of an Indonesian military campaign to take control of West Papua from the Dutch. On to Beijing. Engulfed in choking smog, some northern Chinese cities limited the number of cars on roads and temporarily shut down factories on Monday to cut down pollution during a national red alert. More than 700 companies stopped production in Beijing, and traffic police were restricting drivers by monitoring their license plate numbers, according to what the state media reported. In addition, dozens of cities closed the schools and took other emergency measures after a red alert was issued from Friday night to Wednesday for much of northern China. Moreover, the smog had earlier grounded flights in some cities and closed highways due to low visibility. And finally, sports news. Italy defender Leonardo Bonucci has extended his contract at Juventus, keeping him at the Serie A club until 2021. Bonucci joined Juventus from Bari in 2010 and has made 291 appearances for the club. The 29-year-old Bonucci has won 5 Serie A titles with Juventus, 2 Italian Cups and 3 Italian Super Cups. He was also a key part of the team which reached the Champions League final in 2015. On Monday, Bonucci wrote on Twitter, "I have renewed until 2021. I chose the home where I became great among the greats." It's worth mentioning that Bonucci's previous contract, signed in July 2015, expired in 2020. And before ending our news, let's take another look at the most important headlines for today. Buses resume taking remaining civilians and rebels from Aleppo. 2 girl bombers explode outside Nigeria's Maiduguri city. And we reached the end of our Newsat Bulletin for today. Thank you for joining us and see you tomorrow in a new bulletin.